Miyagi.
When we were little, we did that.
You did do that?
Yep. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Five Boys in a Business, a podcast where we talk about our business, our family, and the many shenanigans involved. Typically, we're on Monday mornings, but with the COVID thing, we've been kind of just adjusting and doing as whenever we can, pretty much, on Mondays. But we've stuck to Mondays.
We can, yeah.
So I'm Emily King, and
I'm Richie King.
And so we welcome you to the podcast. And you can listen to the podcast on any podcast channel, so YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. And we're live from the bunker yet again. Although I feel like the bunker's getting infiltrated because restrictions are being lifted. So
yep, it's not so much going to be a bunker anymore.
No longer a bunker.
Just the office.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, so we're back at it this week.
Back in the saddle. It's good to be back.
We have staffing back up to full capacity now. We're no longer doing the rotations every week. Mm-hmm. So everyone was excited about that because we made it through that last 4 weeks, and now we're into not having to be confined, on those weekly rotations. So there's a lot of people we haven't been working with that we've missed, and so now we're working with them again. So that was kind of exciting.
One of the first things I noticed when I got here this morning was there are no parking spaces.
There you go.
Except for the parking space reserved for you, which I took. So the only one
because
left.
I never use that parking space.
The only one left, so I had to take
it. Feels weird. Okay, so and the parking spaces that we're leaving for surgery and pickups.
Well, yeah, those are the orange cones were there,
right?
So I couldn't use those, obviously.
So I mean, we learned a lot over the past 4 to 6 weeks in regards to our efficiencies and deficiencies.
We learned some things we're glad we learned, and learned some things we wish we hadn't.
I think that we learned a lot about different things that we can adapt. One, that we can adapt, but two, that things that we can take with us post COVID-19.
Oh, sure.
So different ways of checking people in and out, or providing a service in a different manner that might be more convenient, for the clients.
Yeah, I think on one of the positive aspects of this entire event and the circumstances that surrounded it are that it really, and we're not alone, I think, in this regard. I think that it really pushed people out of their comfort zone and forced them to adapt in ways that they probably wouldn't have otherwise adapted, certainly not as quickly as it happened. So yeah, I think operational efficiencies, I say like operational bloat, things like that. I think this put a spotlight on some of those things so that you can eliminate or otherwise hone. Yeah. So it's good, to the extent that the event's been good. That's one of the positive aspects.
We last week was my week off in the rotation, so we had a lot going on. We got to do a lot of different stuff, and that was nice about the rotations, that we had blocks of time where I could spend with the kids. Yeah. Which normally doesn't happen unless you're actually like taking vacation.
You said something to me this past week. You said, if I didn't love the boys' behavior so much, they'd drive me crazy.
Oh, that's right. Because what did they do? What did somebody do?
The kids went out back.
That's right.
The kids had taken it upon themselves.
Here, Harrison, you can show everybody this.
Had taken it upon themselves to create a slip and slide in the backyard that was pretty extensive, out of tarps and dishwashing liquid and the garden hose.
Yeah, it was pretty hilarious because
the backyard's pretty steep, so I was like, you better watch out.
Yeah, the backyard's very steep. So they were, as always, they always surprise me with their ability to create chaos out of nothing. Right. And so they can figure out ways to, whether it be in regards to spray paint, tarps, detergent soap.
Calvin spray painting the...
Yes.
Spray painting. I walk out and he's like, "Watch, Dad. I'm gonna do this." I'm like, "Oh my God, okay."
Yeah. So
that's not gonna end well.
Right.
He did keep it on the tarp though, so it was good.
So Harrison, we cannot see the video on this TV. Just
speaking of spray painting, we had some bad weather, so Emily was spray painting some furniture in the garage, and I walked out in the garage. And I thought I was gonna need a spotlight to find you out there. So hazy.
It was good. It was actually, my sister was kind enough to give me my the wicker furniture that my parents had at the lake house that we all grew up, well, starting with Harrison, all of the kids grew up with, and there were so many memories surrounding that, and so I was working on that. I was cleaning it up and then painting it or whatever. It turned out really nice.
Yeah, it did turn out nice. It's,
Courtney was sending me pictures of some of the other parts of the set, and I was like, oh my God, I forgot about this or
Right.
this. And there's so many memories, because originally when my parents had their lake house, we had this really small room off of the kitchen that was kind of like a makeshift sunroom. Like the person like just added it on. I don't know. It had brick patio.
well,
brick
I think the brick
floor.
patio. I think the brick patio was original because I think it used to be outside.
Okay, and then they
think.
just like maybe like
they just
enclosed
boxed
that.
it in.
But it was like what, like a 8 by 13.
12, yeah.
We used to cram our butts into that space because we were also paranoid to wake up Harrison. And so then, don't you remember, we would eat out there and then we would visit out there at night. And so there's a lot of good memories surrounding that wicker furniture.
Well, it's fascinating too, because
so,
the transition of their lake house was that when they first bought it, it was basically just, because Jim and Betsy had moved away
right
at that point. So it was basically just us and Harrison. None of the other sisters had kids.
Oh, here's the kids on their
none of the other sisters had
their
kids.
slip and slide that they made on the property. Yes.
So you could. You're right. You could get everybody out on that patio, but then as everybody's families grew, it became harder and harder to do that. Yeah, that's them. I was like,
There's
watch out, buddy
Calvin.
boy. So have an exit strategy, fellas.
They had a good, like, maybe 25, 30 yards. They could, they started getting going pretty good. And
You gotta be careful because you have rocks down the bottom of that.
Yes. So yeah.
So yeah, that was good. Lots of good memories with the wicker furniture. So many memories of that old lake house. I remember, I was just thinking about a story when Harrison, because Harrison could be difficult at times at night. He could be a bit of a challenge. And he wouldn't sleep, remember?
Yes.
And we had to drive home. It was like 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning. I was like, let's just drive home, let him sleep there, and come back the next morning.
Oh, yeah,
at that point,
in South Bend.
we lived an hour away.
Right.
So we just got in the car and drove home. And your parents got up and they're like, we got
Where's
up there.
Harrison?
Yeah, where's everybody? So.
Oh, gosh, yeah. The other thing I got to do on the week that I wasn't in the clinic was I did a Zoom meeting with my teammates from JMU.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
It was hilarious because I was wearing my Tennessee hat, which I wear all the time because I consider it my lucky hat. And they're like, man, we got to get you some JMU gear. And I was like, you know what? That's funny because all my JMU gear is out. Like, I don't have any, it's all been used up and over
you
years.
haven't been there since probably, what was it, 1981? So it's a long time. That's a long time ago.
Hey, now shut it down. But I was thinking, I was like, wait a minute, we do represent JMU because on the podcast wall we've got the JMU sign. So
in all seriousness, you did have a lot of JMU gear.
Yes.
Like when we first got married, and
I just wore it out.
Yeah.
I just wore it out.
Yeah.
I have such fond memories of that place, and it was so much fun seeing those guys. There's hardly anybody that I know or have known or have relationships with that I can pick up and feel comfortable just starting a conversation out of nowhere, not having spoken to them in many years, and just start talking and getting to know them again. And it's, I think you must live through so many trials and tribulations in that time period of your life that you form some kind of like bond that is just there, that you just experience things together, or there's something about it that's,
it's funny because I can pick up and talk to people from high school like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes, some people, not everybody, but you kind of immediately, when I've been to reunions and the last 2 reunions, I'll see people I haven't seen in 20 or 30 years, and you just start talking like you did. And it must be because of that, like you said, that bond that you formed during that formative period of your life.
Right.
That, and especially in college, I think, because you're much closer to how you are as as a later adult in college, and you are certainly in high school.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you have a lot of, coming of age experiences, I'm sure, that happen in college and stuff. So.
Hey, there's Paula. Paula was on the call. Vicky was on the call. Nikki was on the call. Locke or Liz was on the call. It was fun talking to everybody.
Well, especially you though, because you guys,
and Elnora was on the call. Elnora's in my grade, and then everybody else on the call was 1 year older than us. And Elnora and I were classmates together, and so came in as freshmen and then graduated as seniors or whatever. So it was, it was just such a neat time period. And we did things and accomplished things that I never would have thought that we would have been able to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, we never even thought that we weren't. It was funny because Vicky's daughter now plays soccer at JMU, which is really cool, I think, that she has a child that goes to her university is playing a sport there
Right.
and, you know, experiencing that. You know, she was telling us a story about how her daughter was in line at the athletic. I think she was talking about like the trainer or the athletic department or somewhere. She was in line and there was a basketball player in front of her, and the basketball player was like huge. And her daughter texted her and said, I can't imagine you ever played basketball here. And, you know, because Vicky's about 6 foot or whatever. And,
Right.
And Vicky's like, we did, and we did a pretty good job of it. And so it was really cute because we figured out a way to be successful, even though we weren't, you know, the biggest, kids on the court or whatever.
Right.
So, you know, it was like, yeah, you know, and then Nikki said something like, yeah, and we did a really good job at it, you know, because we did. We were really,
Yeah.
it was a neat team that we had.
Now, you
That
guys
group
did.
of-
I mean, you get into the Sweet 16 that one year.
yeah,
You
that
guys
group
did pretty
of-
well. I mean,
of-
it's
of,
D1. D1
teammates
sports
was
is no
really neat.
joke. I mean, I think that I've always been impressed with your career there. Yeah.
So very cool. Very good, fond memories. So we're going to Zoom call again. I told him I'm going to somehow bribe him to be on the podcast at some point
Well, yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
because we can just rehash some stories. And
Harry, I'm gonna step out and take this call, buddy.
go ahead. You're fine. So, so last week was a good week. We're back into it this week. Also, my parents are back from Florida, so that's good. They finally made the journey back. They've been kind of waiting until all of that has kind of settled down. So they're now back in their Carmel house. So that's good because now we're available to be able to take stuff to them or help them or do whatever. So yeah. So Harrison, what you got on the books for today, podcast today? You said you had stuff you wanted to talk about.
For people that are watching right now, I've added a new thing. So I have my mic obviously right here, but then I have my Logitech camera on my computer. So I've had this Logitech camera for probably, I'd say maybe like 3 or 4 years. And honestly, I think it's better than the cameras that we have right now that are running the podcast. But
Good, you give yourself the better camera.
well,
So you add years to us the way we
mean,
look, and then
no.
you look over there looking real good
that's
and
not the
nice.
plan. No, but for people who have been watching the last few episodes, they know that I've been having trouble with my internet, and recently it's been fixed. Everybody, all right?
Can you hear the collective clapping in the background?
And I'm going to tell you right now, I have no idea how it got fixed. I have no clue, all right? Let me paint you guys a little timeline here real quick, okay? I go from I leave. What day did I leave, Mom?
You left on Tuesday.
I left on Tuesday. We were alternating schedules. It was my week off. Everybody was up at the lake house. I went down on Tuesday. Okay. Mind you, previous to this, I've had flags in my yard for around 2 weeks, basically pointing out where like the gas line is, where the network line is, all that stuff. Okay. I come back from Tennessee. All the flags are gone. And I go into my house, and the internet's working flawlessly. Okay, I have no idea what happened. I don't know if they fixed something at the pole. I do not know because the guy never showed up for the appointment that I set at Xfinity, or from Xfinity. So I'm
who
okay.
knows?
Yeah, who knows? But it's
But it
fixed.
works.
So, yep,
So you're
it works.
happy.
Yep, I'll take it.
That's just crazy. I wonder what they did. He had to. I wonder if if they just came early and they fixed something.
I mean, they must have because they weren't there on Sunday. I was awake and going to get some supplies from Home Depot. So, speaking of Home Depot, sorry, I'm going off on a bunch of tangents here because I
Go
have a lot
for
to
it.
talk about.
It's good. Go
But,
for it. Yeah.
I have a bunch of collectibles. I collect gaming statues from a bunch of different games I love. And I recently have had like cabinets and whatnot to put them in to display them. And I have decided to do the shelves on my own.
You're going to actually become handy.
Yeah, well, some would say I've already been handy, but I have decided to do them myself. I went and got these really, really, really long wood planks because at first I wanted floating shelves, and it was almost impossible to find a floating shelf long enough for what I wanted because I wanted to span the entire wall, which is around like 110 inches, I think. And all of them like over $300. Okay. I ended up going to Home Depot, getting the shelves, getting everything I need, not for the floating shelves because I'm going to put them on like brackets, but I think it cost me like $60 to
There you go.
to do what I want to do. So yesterday I went out. I got those planks. They're very heavy and huge. And I sanded them, and we're good to go. I'm just waiting for Dad to come over and help me put up the brackets. So 'cause I'm afraid that I will destroy my wall if I do it myself.
Well, it's a long span. You got to make sure it's level. So
right, exactly.
That.
So I would say in terms of handiness, I am probably a level maybe
one.
like 0.8. Not even 1 yet. I'm getting there though. Madeline knows. She knows. We're getting there. All right. I've looked at a bunch of different ways to try and run an Ethernet cable from my router in my living room all the way to my office on the other side of the house, and I don't think I'm gonna be able to do it because it's just too hard. But
it's never too hard.
You never know.
You can always. There's always a way.
There's always a way. There's always a solution. You just have to make the decision. You're gonna find it. Way to go, Dad.
I need to get one of these things called a Stream Deck, because like right now, in order for me to talk and like my camera to pop up and whatnot, like I need to like push a bunch of different buttons.
Oh, in order to make it work, yeah.
But the Stream Deck, like you can link all those buttons to one button and you just push it, and it's fine.
You know something that's annoying is I've been listening to a bunch of podcasts lately. Like I was listening to some on the way home this weekend, and so many podcasts are having to do Zoom calls now.
Oh yeah, I bet.
And the audio quality is not good.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, I'm sure.
It's annoying because when you talk with the Zoom calls, as soon as you start to talk, you pop up, your feed pops up, but it just doesn't make for a good podcast.
I mean, I've been shocked with how much of my old equipment is still like pretty stellar. Like this Logitech camera is still fantastic, like has great quality. Yeah. My Blue Yeti I've had forever, and it's been moved like multiple times, and it still sounds fantastic.
Is that what you used to use when you used to stream?
Yeah.
Well.
So the other thing we got to do this past weekend was
what?
We got, for all those people out there waiting, Harris, I'm going to mention it. Is that okay? Is the lip sync video 2.0. I thought you said I could mention it. I just asked and you said yes. Okay. So for all the people who enjoyed the first to go around,
this one's even better.
This one we will launch it later. But we filmed everything yesterday. Mm-hmm. And it's to Queen. So all you Queen fans out there, be on the lookout, because I'm not going to tell them the song. But we think it's pretty fantastic.
You guys did a good job. You took it to the next level.
So,
after doing what I did yesterday with the lip sync video and like directing people and like letting them know my vision and stuff, I have no idea how these like big budget directors do what they do. I have no idea.
No, I do. You know how what they do is
ridiculous.
They're there to direct, but then you have a cinematographer, you have a sound person, you have everybody doing the jobs that you were doing yesterday.
Yeah, and then you just go, "Yep, that's what I was looking for." Yeah. Yep, that's what I was looking for.
Then they'll watch the dailies that you shoot and say, "That's good," whatever.
It's still difficult.
It's still scaling.
And even then, you have like assistant directors, assistant producers,
and then you have maybe even your parents coming in and introducing whole new ideas that weren't even in the original plan.
Okay, that is not fair. We all have ideas when they come up, and you were very good about going, nope, don't do that. Nope, we're not doing that.
Here's me doing an impression of Harrison yesterday. Drop the sheet when I tell you to drop the sheet. I'm like, I'm listening for you to say drop. So you just got to tell me when to do it.
You were kind of crabby yesterday about the sheet dropping.
Everybody was laughing at you outside in the hallway.
Yes, you were. You had your serious, like, oh, I'm not doing it right, so I'm going to get in trouble.
No, that's not right. I was just saying that you didn't have enough time. So I was waiting for you to direct because I couldn't pop my head around.
Can you tell when it gets really quiet, that means that you've gotten too mad for the scenario. And so everyone's like, ooh, let's all be quiet because she's not happy right now. And so when you hear the collective shh going on, that should give you an indication.
I didn't hear any collective anything.
Maybe I'm over.
What did I say yesterday that was overly?
It is not what you say; it's how you say it.
Okay, so how did I say it?
You'll say something like, "I am holding that sheet there. It takes longer than 3 seconds for me to get that sheet up and down and whatever." What did he say, Harrison? It was something like that.
And then
we can't possibly get this done in 3 seconds.
I'm over here trying to direct 6 other people, and Dad's over here.
We can't possibly get it done in 3 seconds. There's no way 3 seconds is not long.
No,
this is longer than 3 seconds.
Jesus.
What's frustrating is that we were having issues with the sheet, and the waving of the sheet and the time that the sheet had to be up. And I was simply saying to myself, if I had known what was going on, I probably could have come up with something a little bit better.
No, I know. No, I do appreciate that you would have had something built or made something that would have made it a lot smoother and easier.
Yeah.
But we relied on Harrison's editing to
Right.
which
In the end, it'll all be okay.
And in the end, it'll all be okay. And you're good.
To me.
I'm glad you're letting us razz you just a little bit today, because
we
it wouldn't be a Monday podcast without it.
We have a few comments from Victoria Skinner. Best vet doctor, you saved our Bella and Samantha when we, Will, and Indy want to stop by and introduce our new puppy, Sasha.
Oh, I would love to see you and David. They were clients for such a long time. They moved, and they had a boxer that had a really serious, significant problem. So,
we got a very, very, very nice review.
It is
over the
Puppy
weekend.
Central, man. I'm
And
telling you what.
It was so
That's not
nice.
too surprising, though.
Let me see if
Especially
I can pull
coming
it
out
up
of this stuff.
I think, Harrison, what were the puppy totals for up to May 1st? I mean, up to, like all the whole month of April. Did you ever calculate out the totals?
It's probably I would say probably 70.
Wow. That's a lot.
We compared it to like Christmas or something, and it was like 3 times the amount of new puppies coming in versus the same time frame, like around Christmas, which is another really popular time.
But I think,
been,
when I say it's not too surprising, because I think when you have these kinds of events like that remind you what you really want, I'm sure people, I know several people very closely, one in particular, who says, I'm just going to go do it.
I don't know who that would be.
I don't know. Their name escapes me at the moment. But, no, I can totally see why people would go get a puppy, because they're like, well, I want a puppy, or I've always wanted this, or I've always wanted that, or so just go do it. So.
Yeah.
So this review we got, her name is Kathy Vickers Townsend, so thank you for the very kind review. But it says, and I quote, "Our dog Jordan was not being his normal strong-willed self. I thought he had just finally decided to calm down a little so he could just sit with us and not knock everything over in his wake. But no, it was just not normal for him. He was not eating his food. He was just sad-looking. He was weak. I called this veterinary clinic based on a Google search, and their location being reasonably close to us. I sent a message, and they called me back and wanted to see our boy. We secured a time and got him there. We knew he was weak, but we didn't know the really bad news. He had a very slowed heart rate. His heart was skipping beats. It was dangerous, and he needed help immediately. We were given a couple options. We could go to a facility for more emergency care, and of course that could be more expensive. We felt comfortable right where we were, and when Dr. Pulse offered to watch and stabilize Jordan, we chose that option, and we are very glad we did. She quickly zeroed in on the right diagnosis. They got him through the night. They got him to eat. We had never left him anywhere else overnight, and it was nerve-wracking but also a relief because we knew he was better off there since he was in such a dangerous situation. We have every intention to spread the news about the absolute top-level care we received at All-Star Veterinary Clinic, and we plan to take our fur babies there as well, or our other fur babies there as well. But for now, just getting Jordan through this ordeal will suffice."
It's good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think, I might be misspeaking here, but I think Jordan, they actually had a call in from Jordan's mom this morning saying Jordan was actually eating and feeling much better. I think that might have been the Addisonian dog
Good.
that came in, which is, we have very few critical cases, like emergent cases in veterinary medicine. There's only so many that like you have to see them in order to fix them. Like if they go too many hours or too many days past being sick, then you can't get them back. It's really hard to reverse the scenarios. And Addison's disease is one of them where you have to diagnose them, you have to treat them, and usually they'll do very well. And so it may be something else that pet may have had something else, but that just makes me think when those guys were talking last week about their cases.
It's good.
But that's awesome.
That's awesome.
It's because we have amazing veterinarians here. These guys that are here besides myself are Dr. Pulse and Dr. Duckwall and Dr. Dudley and Dr. Cloud and Dr. Faust. And they're all phenomenal. I wouldn't have them here unless they were. Mm-hmm. And so I think that everybody can feel very comfortable seeing any one of them for any variety of reasons. But I think that they're all exceptional. They understand the mission and the vision of the clinic, which is exceptionally important.
It's good.
So
I agree.
Yeah.
While we were gone this week, okay, on the alternating schedules routine, okay, something happened. Do you guys know what it is? Something crazy happened. Somebody,
Here?
something. No, and just in the world in general. Somebody released something, and the world didn't even bat an eye. Do you know what I'm talking about?
In the world of what?
I said the world
world
didn't bat an eye. What happened?
The Flynn report.
No, I don't know what that is.
Oh, and
Somebody
no one
released
batted
something.
an eye. I feel like I should know this. I feel like I've heard this.
I have no idea.
Oh shoot, what is it?
Well, give us a hint. I mean, like,
I know what it is. I know what it is.
So
I can't think
during
of it.
that week, I don't remember when, or what day, or what time, but I do know that the Navy released footage.
Oh yes, of the UFOs.
Of the UFOs.
Yes, that's
and
what it
they
was.
confirmed that it
Yeah,
was
I read
actual
that.
footage. And since COVID's happening, stupid COVID, nobody even cared.
Nobody cared.
yeah, but my
Nobody said a
understanding,
thing about it.
my
I'm like, this is
understanding, though,
unbelievable.
was that they released the footage a long time ago. But now they're just saying it's legit.
Yeah, but I don't think they ever claim legitimacy. Like they didn't say like, oh yeah, that's for real. That's for and they probably did that now because they could kind of scoot under the radar.
There was Michael Knowles discussed this actually on his podcast, and he said that there are three options in his opinion with regard to what that is. And he said it could be extraterrestrial technology, it could be classified technology that the U.S. has. That it's since it's so old, it's 15 years. You know, the videos from like 2004, right?
Oh, I'm not sure.
I think
don't know.
Tic Tac videos. That's what you're referring to, right? The Tic Tac video. Tic Tac. Anyway, that's what it is. But it's from like 2004, so it's like 15 years ago, 16 years ago.
Harrison's nodding his head. No. That's
Anyway,
not it.
so what's fascinating is that could, to his point, that it could be classified technology that's 15 years old.
Right.
From my understanding, this footage released about a year ago, but it was leaked. So I shouldn't say released. It was leaked I think it was leaked last year, but nobody came out and said anything. It was just kind of like speculation, like, you know, it's whatever because it didn't get confirmed. But they came out with that same footage like last week and said, yeah, this footage that came out last year, yeah, it's real, and we think it's UFOs.
Well, the guy that shot the video, the Navy pilot, I've heard him on a couple of podcasts discussing it. And what happened was they were out over the ocean, like 100 miles out to sea, I think in the Pacific, and they said, hey, will you go check these vectors out, you know, whatever. And so he and his other plane went out there to check it, the F-18, and he said that they get out there and it looked like something below the surface of the water, like a churn, like the water was boiling, and these tic-tac looking vehicles 40 feet long or so were circling around the thing, and they went down to look at it, and then the speed at which those particular tic-tac vehicles were moving was unlike, and the speed and the direction that they were moving was unlike anything. He's like, that technology doesn't exist that he was aware of as a fighter pilot. So it's fascinating. I mean, and it's interesting because the video that they released that I remember seeing was kind of grainy, black and white. You couldn't see it, but he said that the video they shot was in color, much greater resolution, and it gives a better interpretation, or better, you know, visualization of what the crafts are actually capable of doing. But that's why it was so weird, because they would drop from like 50,000 feet to 10,000 feet in like a second. I mean,
Right.
and then just turn at right angles and things that just
the movements
and
just
there's
weren't
no, because it looked like a tic tac, there was no obvious means of propulsion or anything. It's just hovering.
right.
So that's what was odd about it. But it's fascinating to me, I think, to your point, Harrison, that the government's actually coming out and saying, instead of just broadly denying it and saying, no, that's a hoax or whatever, they're saying this is
Legit.
it's a legit video. We don't know what it is,
Right.
but or we can't really, you know. I mentioned a second ago about the Michael Knowles podcast and how he said there were three distinct possibilities, and I think that the third one that I didn't say was that it was classified technology from another government.
Oh, okay.
So it was either classified stuff that we have, classified, you know, tech that someone else has, or it's not, you know, of earthly origin.
So this is the footage that was released, or that was confirmed, pretty much.
And so they actually confirmed that footage.
Yeah.
There's a guy, you can believe him or not believe him. There's a guy who was named Bob Lazar that was on Joe Rogan's podcast a while back, and I remember him from the 80s, late 80s. And he was a guy that was supposedly came out and was a whistleblower. He was a contractor that was assigned, per his story is that he was a subcontractor that worked at Area 51 and was charged with reverse engineering some alien tech that the government had. And they asked once, they said during the podcast, he said, well, why couldn't you make these things work? And he said, did you ever talk to anybody about this stuff? He said, no, because our mission was so narrow. We didn't understand. We just were given this contractions. They try and figure out how this works.
Right.
And he said, I don't need to know basis, so you keep everything compartmentalized, so no one really knows what's going on.
We don't know the whole story.
Yeah,
right?
and one of the things that Rogan asked him was that, why couldn't you make this thing work? He said, why is it so difficult to try and reverse engineer these things? And he gave an example that stuck in my mind. He said, imagine taking a MacBook Pro and dropping it in France in the year 1350. He's like, they have no concept of electricity. They have no concept of any of these things. He's like, its technology is so far beyond anything they could possibly imagine that you don't even know what to do with it. You just look and go, how could this possibly work? And that stuck with me because I thought it's interesting when you talk about leaps in technology like that. Take somebody 100 years ago and bring them modern day, and they go, well, you can shoot pictures to. I mean, they don't even understand. They have no concept of those things. Right. As recently as 100 years ago. So take a technology that's 1,000, 2,000, how many thousands of years ahead of us, we would have no idea. What the entire concept of movement and time. I mean, is complete. We could be completely the things that we understand today. Just simply, we wouldn't be able to understand what they're able to do.
Right.
So
yeah,
interesting stuff.
Fascinating. I just find it interesting that it just nobody commented on it. None of the news feeds. None of the.
Well, but it wasn't. It was already, the footage was already out there. I think the big distinction, right, Harrison, was they just came out and acknowledged it. They just said it was legitimate footage.
Right.
So I mean, because it was at least a year and a half ago that I remember hearing about it, and then I started to look up some podcasts on it and listen to it. Some of those people are kooky. I mean, the Bigfoot watchers and that kind of stuff. But but I've always thought this is kind of a kooky thing. The kids have asked me these questions and they're like, do you believe in some of these things? And I always think, like say UFOs or alien technology. And I've always thought the universe is so vast, far more vast than we can possibly imagine. Statistically, it seems almost terribly, terribly unlikely that there's not some other advanced civilization out there somewhere.
Right.
So anyway.
There we have it.
5 Boys in a Business, the UFO Files. I can hear everybody switching their.
Oh gosh, that's funny.
What do you think, Gary? You're a younger person. What do you think?
I think exactly what you think.
What?
So
really?
that UFOs exist?
Yep. They
really?
definitely exist. Yep.
Definitely. Okay.
He's a definitely. Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
I believe in all that stuff. Like I believe in the ghosts. I believe in the paranormal stuff. I believe in UFOs.
Was it you and I that used to watch that show with Zach Baggins or whatever?
Yes. The Ghost Adventures or something like that.
Ghost Adventures.
Yeah.
I eventually got to the point.
Every show's the same.
Age where I was like, this is dumb.
Everything happens. They have cameras everywhere, yet they never show. He goes, I just got scratched. You never see. And they would take these things. It was the funniest part is they would have these recorders, and they would record things that sounded like nothing, and then they would put the text below it and go, he just said hello or whatever.
Right.
So stupid.
Well, they have that app now. Calvin always walks around with that app where it's like,
ridiculous.
It's kind of like heat sensing for paranormal activity.
That's exactly what he should be doing.
God,
scare him out to death. I can hear him jumping in our bed right now.
Oh, I can hear the conversations.
He says Zach will say there's a cut on him, and off screen you'll see him with a toothpick, like like that.
Yeah, the bloopers on that show would have been great.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I do think though, and this is I think that this is maybe an atypical viewpoint. I think Harris talked about paranormal. I think that there are things we just can't understand.
Right.
It's almost difficult. I mean, it's almost impossible to understand. So, and maybe at this stage of development, we're not meant to understand. So I don't know. So, but I think the mystery is what's fascinating. I mean, from the UFOs to paranormal, it's the what ifs that make things interesting.
Yeah.
Be terribly boring is like, nah. I mean, this is what's right here in front of us. That's it.
So Governor Holcomb came out on Saturday, right? Was it Saturday?
Friday.
2:30.
Came out and he said he's gonna have a plan to reopen the state by July 4th.
Thank God.
Yep.
What a great day to open up the state again.
Yeah.
Well,
by
completely.
July 4th, hopefully things are back to normal. They have these like 4 guidelines they're following to continue to go from one phase to the next. So
I think most
those
counties
are soft deadlines, but I mean for the most part, yeah.
I mean there were I think 2 or 3 counties that are excluded,
right?
Like Marion and some of these other places, but for the most part, I think the outlying counties like Hamilton they'll be back to normal.
Why was Marion County excluded?
Because they're hotbeds.
Higher counts.
Higher counts, yeah.
Oh.
I read today that almost 44% of all COVID deaths have been in senior living facilities.
Yeah.
Is that fascinating?
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it's not. I think it's what they were expecting from the standpoint of that population.
No. I know, but I'm saying it's fascinating to me that the perception is that this is across the entire population. But when you hear that and you think, oh, wait a minute, that's confined to those numbers are extraordinarily high amongst in those communities.
Right.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
I was reading the other day, or I was on Twitter, and one of the streamers I follow, he was talking about how, they say that COVID could have gone back to like January and whatnot, but like people didn't really know it. And so he said basically him and a bunch of other streamers went to Las Vegas, and almost all of them came back from that trip and were like deathly sick. They said it was like the worst sickness they've ever had. So like he was like, I wonder if that was it. But
I read something today that I think it was far back as September.
Oh, I'm sure there were people that had it, that, like the younger population, that didn't know they had it, and there's no test for it. And I mean, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
There are parts of it that I really don't. that they're putting into play that I really don't know if I am okay with, like
what?
Like like your phone, like once you test positive, then somebody being able to follow where you're at and your movements, and I'm like, that's a little bit creepy for me.
I think I've said this all along. I think people have, and Harrison brought up the guidelines to reopen and things like that. I think you're seeing other states out there. I read an article the other day by a lady. She said, we're going to reopen when people start deciding, individually, they're just going to go back to doing things they used to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem with this, is that when what you're being told doesn't necessarily match what you're seeing personally or on the ground, eventually you're like, okay.
Or you've been scared to no end for 6 weeks. The information that's being fed to you is scaring you to no end, that you're unwilling to then, because I mean, there are things that, like we talk about here, even in the clinic, when we operate in exam rooms, not operate like as far as surgery, but I mean, like when we're working in exam rooms, we're in close quarters with everybody. I mean, we've been doing that for years on years, and at risk for us giving something to our clients giving something to us.
Right.
I mean, and that's just an inherent risk that we take by being in the industry and being in exam rooms, period. Now, are there precautions you can take? Yeah, absolutely. But never have they created such hysteria over such an agent.
Right.
And everybody has their own opinion as to whether or not it's warranted. And a lot of people are on the fence of, well, I'd rather be overcautious than not. But at the same time, then what are you going to do when the flu hits and we have twice as many deaths because of flu? Are we going to do all of this because of flu?
I think.
And so it's, or the next agent. I mean, like, how does this, because we can't do e-learning forever.
Right. It's homeschool's got to
Okay, so what is this really about? It's about homeschool. Let's just be honest.
Oh, no, but I do think that, though, this has been, I've heard a bunch of people comment on this, and I agree with it. They say that the problem with this particular event was that we were lacking in data. And you're relying on numbers from other countries, which may or may not have been true. You don't know, because they would have had a vested interest in maybe keeping those numbers low.
Right.
So and I think that as more and more data rolls in, and you start to say, okay, this is twice as infectious as the flu, or this is 1.5 times as deadly as the flu, or something like that. You'll look at those things and go, okay, this wasn't necessarily what we thought it was.
Right.
And I think that that's the problem, though, now, is that their perceptions are fixed because of the information that we were being given 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, no, I know.
Like, oh, you're going to have that. And then when that doesn't happen, I think it's tough. But I do think it'll take a while for people to get over this. I think about a year before things get really back to normal.
Well, and especially if they're setting up expectations that if the surges happen, then you're going to go back into doing some of these.
I don't think they will.
I don't think
people stand for it.
Well, even this weekend, I think that like people in Indianapolis were like, we're going to have a parking lot get together, or we're going to have this, or we're going to have, like, I think they're getting to the point where they're
overzealous and their restrictions.
And feeling like, or the people in Michigan not being able to travel from their own house to their own house.
I do think that there is a sense of, we're all in this together until it looks like you're abusing your power, or the things that I'm being told aren't matching what's on the ground. Yeah. And I think that's the problem, and that's why I say I don't think people are going to re-lock down, because they're like, gave you 6 weeks, this is what should have happened. And it's not, we're not seeing what was what was predicted.
Well, and like I said, I mean, I think everybody has their opinion based upon where they live in the country, based upon
Sure.
what their job is, based upon their own health, and then how they experience illness. I mean, like, there's so many different factors and why people have the opinions they have. So,
Well, I mean, opinions. I mean, I think opinions, though. I look at it. I mean, I look at the economic carnage that some people are going through, and you go, at some point, people are like, I'm done. I mean, if I'm choosing between, following these guidelines or losing everything I've got, literally, I'm choosing the latter. I'm going to do this. I mean, at some point, self-preservation goes beyond just some of the things that they're talking about, and I think that's the conflict that people have. But I do think, I mean, these protests, a lot of this pushback you're getting from the public in areas where I wouldn't expect to see necessarily pushback, or because in some cases I think the measures are very draconian. There doesn't seem to be a plan in place. It's just like, we're being shut down till July 4th. People are like, wait a minute, 60 days away.
Right.
And what's the plan? I think people will cooperate so long as there's a definitive plan and a course of action that logically makes sense.
Yeah. And I think that's where Indiana's plan. I mean, I
I
think
agree.
they did a good job of laying it out there and the timelines.
I'm not criticizing Indiana about
No. But I'm saying as an example,
Right.
I mean, I think they put guidelines in play, and they made it very easy to understand. It's not complicated.
Right.
We can apply it to our business structure. It's easy to, you know what I mean? Like, so, I mean, I think that
it seems reasonable.
It seems reasonable. It doesn't seem.
It has logic. You go, okay, I get it. People can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I think that's what was lacking before. Not necessarily in Indiana, but some of these other places, and the complaints that you see, it's just like, we're staying shut until August. And you think,
I just don't know what's going to happen when this all comes back in the fall. I mean, like, because I think there are, just like with flu and other.
Well, I mean, that was
but
see the whole, and this is again, this goes to the credibility of the experts and the people, the policymakers, because the whole point of this was to flatten the curve and to not overwhelm the healthcare resources. That obviously hasn't happened. So now what? So now it's just a question of management. I mean, manage those cases as they come in and see what happens. I think that's, but then, it's shifted from that to now we have to save and all this stuff. So I think people are willing to cooperate to a point.
Yeah.
Until a plan like Indiana's put in place is implemented and say, okay, now we see light at the end of the tunnel. We see what's going on. I still think all this was because of lack of information, though. And an approach that we had to do. I mean, they were looking at countries like Italy and saying this could,
this could be.
It could be, it could be different, or you look at New York City, and New York City isn't the whole country,
right?
So in terms of population density, things like that. So I think they were operating with the best.
I'm sure there are some parts of the United States where people are like, "What the heck is going on?" Like,
South Dakota,
like remote, like South Dakota or Montana, like some areas where there's,
Well, I think that's went into Christina Noem's decision in South Dakota. I think it's South Dakota, not to lock down. She's like, the population density just isn't here to warrant that.
Right.
Be responsible. That also goes to Sweden's.
Yeah.
Sweden's plan was to just be responsible, socially distanced, but let that herd immunity. Let's get there as quickly as possible.
Right.
And it looks like even I've heard people say that's probably what should have been done in other parts instead of just a total lockdown.
Right.
Because they're not going to have a second wave.
Right.
Of assuming it doesn't mutate or something like that.
Right.
So
it's absolutely fascinating.
It's history. I told the kids, it's like
never again you'll see.
Yeah, this is historic. This will be referred to 100 years from now about what happened and the response and things like that. And what's fascinating to me too is that in today's modern era, we think we have a handle on pretty much everything, and it's fascinating to see that Mother Nature still has a very large role to play.
Yeah.
In what outcomes, and you think that we can. No, there are still things. It's it's tough.
So hopefully they'll have a vaccine maybe by the end of the year. That'd be helpful too to keeping things normal. But
I do think I think that the resiliency of people, and I think social constructs and societal norms will almost always they'll be restored fairly quickly, and that's what drives a lot of things.
Right.
I mean, 6 weeks won't overcome the past 60 years.
Right.
Of what people do. So it's fascinating.
Yep.
So we've almost survived COVID.
Almost
survived the COVID. I got my first. I'll tell you, hats off. Dr. King has so many talents, so many that I simply don't have enough time to list them all here. This weekend, though, I have to add hairdresser to hers because she gave me a COVID cut that was good.
Well, thanks. It wasn't too hard because your hair is nice to cut, but
so yeah,
I did okay.
Looks pretty good.
Harrison thinks I need to go shorter on the sides, so
I was gonna have her buzz it, but I was like, she liked it this way. She said she looks good.
The problem is the problem is that you have to even out the side. Like everything is so even around. You need to make these shorter and then look.
You want to come over and cut it?
I would have if you asked me.
It's supposed to be blended in so that it doesn't look like your hair.
Oh.
What was that? This is on camera. This is on camera. Everybody look at it. Take a good old look at it. Dr. King abusing one of her employees.
There we go.
Well, you've cut Trevor's hair and you cut
Everybody's hair at some point.
except for Johnny.
Loosely use that word. Cut everyone's hair.
Speaking of haircuts, Johnny needs a haircut.
Johnny so needs a haircut. Do you have a picture of Johnny?
I was like, dude, you need to let the decision to grow this out.
He's got hair, though, that he could have surfer hair. He's actually got hair that could be long.
It's like no man buns.
Holden could not, on the other hand.
Holden's hair's too thick. He's got that Scotch-Irish hair.
Yeah. So.
Do you remember when Johnny was a
Oh, there, yeah.
Do you remember when Johnny was a baby and he had the most beautiful white flowing hair? Here is
what our children do for STEM. This is Calvin doing here, so I'm gonna send you this. This would be Calvin's experiment with STEM for school. Here you go. You getting it? Is it coming across? Not yet? Okay, tell me when you get it. Goes back to the comments of everybody like getting or understanding or appreciating the personality of boys, because this is where they can create the most interesting things out of nothing.
Who is that?
So do you have the picture, Harrison? Put it up. It's on. I'm just holding it up to you're holding it up. That's Calvin, and that is.
Where'd you get that?
That was in Tennessee. He took a picture of himself. There you go. And he was trying to create something. I don't know what he was doing. I can't remember what he told me, but that was actually one of the poop bags from Winnie's thing. You know, the bags.
Yeah.
So he had pulled out a bag and then decided that, hey,
put it on his head.
Yeah, I'm going to come up with this scenario and see if this will actually work.
There was a quote I listened to on a podcast this morning. The guy was talking. He started the podcast off and he said, it's from Henry Ford, and I'm going to butcher it, but basically it was, think about what could be accomplished by people that didn't know what wasn't possible. And he brought that into the context of kids. And he said, if you just tell a kid to go try and figure something out, you might be shocked at how quickly they do it. And he gave an example of one of his guys that's on his expert council. And he apparently was at their house or something recently, or, in the past. And they have several kids, and their youngest daughter was like 4 or something. And her chores to take the garbage out. And her mom said, go ahead, whoever, take the garbage out. And her dad's like, she can't put that in the garbage can. She's not. And he proceeded to tell the story about the girl was able to get the thing out there, and she couldn't reach up. So she pulled the trash can over, which flipped open the lid. She threw the garbage in and then put it back up.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I was like, it's fascinating what you can do.
Oh, yeah.
If you say, just go figure out how to do it. Be creative. Go do things. And it's interesting because as you get older, you're more cynical because it's more life experience sometimes, and you think your first default is, well, that can't happen.
I can't get that done.
Instead of starting with, how can we make this happen?
Right.
And I thought it was a good life lesson.
That is.
So, it's a good Dr. King quote.
Some would say that's Dad's life motto.
What's that?
Yep.
You can always get things done.
Can always get it done.
The answer is yes. What's the question?
That's a Richieism. There you go.
That's a Richieism right there. Yep.
I will say this, and
do you think we can land a spaceship on the moon again, Richie? Absolutely. Yes, we can. Let's do it right now.
I'll never forget. Now, this is a true story. Now, I give your mom a lot of kudos, but I remember when we first met, one of the things I remember very distinctly about her was how positive she was and how there was nothing that could hold her back. And that attitude has influenced us all, especially.
Well, thank you.
So, seriously.
To be annoying.
I was a little pessimistic back in those days. She was like, will you shut up and get to work? Go do your work. Stop complaining.
Gosh, yeah.
Does that complaint get your work done? Nope, sure doesn't.
Oh, goodness.
So.
Well, everybody, we've enjoyed visiting this week on the podcast.
Yep.
We'll see you next Monday at 5 Boys in Business. Don't forget to check out the merch store. If you want to check out anything there, we can mail it to you.
Outfit you from head to toe.
So you can check us out on the podcast channels on Spotify, iTunes. And if there's anything special you want to hear or talk about, hit us up with an email or leave us a comment. We're happy to do it.
Sure are.
I'm Emily King, and
I'm Richie King.
we'll see you next time on Five Boys in a Business.
We're out.